Most of you that are regulars on this channel, you will know that I never lied. I will always tell you exactly as I saw the game without any restrictions whatsoever. With that said, this performance against Newcastle was one of the worst I've seen in the last couple of years. Chelsea travel to St. James Park and lose 4-1. Let's get into it.
And blue is the colour.
Greetings, welcome back to Couch Critic with me, Dennis P, for what is your Chelsea match review, but more specifically a tactical synopsis of Chelsea's performance against Newcastle. But before I get into all that, you know what to do already. We're trying to grow this channel. We need your help. We need you to hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and hit the bell notification button to keep up with the latest. It'll help me and it'll help my sponsors who go by the name of Major League Socks. And fellas, you already know, if you ever want to walk in the footsteps of greatness, you know what to do. All you gotta do is hit them up. The link will be in the description. Wow. What a performance. Where do you start? Where do you start picking the bones out of this one? You know, just when you think Chelsea's starting to find a semblance of how they want to play, you know, they put in a stinker like that against Newcastle after an international break. Normally after I finish watching a game and it's a disappointing loss, I usually just take my time to just compose myself before I get in front of the camera to, you know, to let you guys know what I thought about the game. And, you know, no different today. I took my time, you know, I analyzed the game as best I could, and I tried to come back to this video and be a little bit more composed and, you know, trying to offer some sort of like insight that might allow you to feel better about the performance. But I'm just as mad as I am after the final whistle. It was truly just a poor performance, and not one that even with a cool head you can look at again and say, you know, there are some good bits that came out of that game. It was truly, from the goalkeeper right out to the strikers, one of the worst performances I've seen from Chelsea in quite some time. And we're going to pick the bones out of it. It's not going to be fun. It's not going to be pretty. Obviously, we're going to be talking about Chelsea's discipline, lack thereof. We're going to be talking about Chelsea's disorganization. We're going to have to really look at the manager now. I think we're far enough into the season where we can start to analyze what it is he's trying to do, whether or not it's working, whether or not the players are taking on the instruction and, you know, delivering it on the pitch. You know, this was a perfect example of, you know, Chelsea just coming off of an international break and not really having a semblance of how to play together. And, you know, we're going to start with obviously the discipline. I thought that was a big portion of this game that kind of let us down, starting with the captain, of course, Reece James, a guy that obviously wears his heart on his sleeve. He's a guy that is very emotional when he's on the pitch, especially when things aren't going Chelsea's way, and you love him for that. But at the same time, when you're a captain, when you're wearing the armband, you have to have the composure and the wherewithal to know what the temperature of the game is and what you need to do in order to, you know, just get the whole squad to buy into this idea that, you know, we have to win this game, you know, and like the emotions that come into, you know, wins and losses, or like even rough tackles and whatnot. You have to be able to like ride those and fight through them and show, you know, give the players around you the inspiration and the understanding of how we're supposed to be playing this game. And I thought that Reece James, first and foremost, was just diabolical in terms of his composure. You know, obviously, you know, things like when you see that the ref is just giving yellow card after yellow card for no apparent reason, you know, dissent, kicking the ball away, you know, touchy fouls here and there, you have to compose yourself. You're the captain of the Chelsea Football Club. You have to understand what the referee's giving and what he's taking away, and, you know, give that to his teammates. And I just thought that he was really poor in that aspect today. I've been going on a rant about like how great I thought Reece James has been as a captain. I just think that he was the embodiment of what we want at Chelsea in terms of like the skill, you know, the two-way method of play, the fact that he's always executing in all aspects of the game, whether defensively, in transition, or offensively. He gives you the complete package. But the one thing that he really needs to learn to be a true captain for this team is just how to compose himself when the moments get really tough. There's a moment at the end of the first half where he got a foul from Joe Linton, and then you see him getting into it with Newcastle on the sidelines. And that to me was just what kick-started the emotions of the game. You know, like he just could not compose himself from that moment on. I mean, especially in games when you don't have the manager on the touchline, you need your captain to be the on-field representation of the manager. And in this game in particular, I just thought that Reece James just did not give us enough leadership and enough quality to see us through the match. I mean, for Cucurella, he's facing suspension. You know, he's coming into this game. he has to know that he has 4 yellows. That has to be communicated to him before he even gets onto the pitch. And for him to be just petulant and making these terrible, challenges, fouls, not being switched on, being booked for dissent at the end of the game to miss the next game now is just poor. You cannot have that at this level. Every detail that comes into winning and losing matches has to be paramount when you step onto the pitch. And for me, he's just not switched on. Yeah, there are moments of the game where the temperature's a little bit high and like your emotions are running high and whatnot, and you lose yourself a bit. But when you've already had a man sent off, you're down 3-1, you're on 4 yellows, you're gonna miss the next game if you collect a yellow. There's no reason to be chirping at the referee who's been giving yellow cards the whole game, knowing that if you get another yellow, you're gonna be missing the next match. Again, just poor discipline from this Chelsea side, and one that came to bite us time and time again. And I mean, a lot of that comes down to, just being such an immature squad. I mean, I'm not necessarily in age, because like obviously we have, senior elder statesmen like Thiago Silva on the pitch who made a plethora of mistakes throughout the match. I'm not gonna really poke the bones out of his game in particular, but like, just in terms of, the maturity of how it takes to win these types of matches, knowing how to read what the game is asking of, knowing when to calm down, knowing when to, be more aggressive and assert yourself more. These are the things that young teams just do not have an understanding of. Not to mention the fact that you have to always, every match, no matter what you think the circumstances are, you have to show a level of consistency and fight that is of the level of the Premier League, of the level of Chelsea Football Club. Let's be real here. We haven't been at that level for a couple of years now. And to that point, Chelsea just do not have enough players. We don't have a depth of squad right now, especially in terms of experience, that we can have drop-offs from 2 or 3 players and expect us to come to St. James Park and win games. Everyone has to be switched on. Everyone has to be at their optimal performance levels in order for us to compete and win games at this point. We're just a young team. And there were so many players on the pitch that just had poor performances. Cole Palmer, muted. Gallagher. I don't want to be like centering out any one particular individual for the performance that we saw today, because everyone was pretty much diabolical, but Conor Gallagher, when Chelsea's finding like some rhythm in the game, they're popping it about a bit, especially in the first 10 to 15 minutes, and we're carving through Newcastle in terms of like our ability to like, break their press, play out from the back, and just get into the final third. And every time the ball fell to Conor Gallagher, it was either a turnover or a bad decision or just awful football. And like, I know he's had a good season this year in terms of like his effort and commitment on the pitch and whatnot, but this is just a game where it just shows you the deficiencies that this guy has as a footballer. Like, when you need him to be technically sound in the final third, when you need him to show, incisiveness and like intuition in the final third, when you need him to just like bang a goal for you, it just doesn't come enough, man. It does not happen enough for him to be a regular number 10 for this Chelsea team. So, again, I don't want to be like pulling on one particular individual this game, because I feel like collectively we're so poor, and one person does not make for a poor performance. It was collectively we were just so poor. But man, was that ever a poor performance from him. And to see him get the amount of minutes that he did in the game, given what he was giving us on the pitch, was just very disappointing. Now, the one thing you expect to have at this point in the season is an understanding between the attackers, an understanding between the midfielders, and an understanding between the defenders. Obviously, this particular game, Chelsea mix-matched the defenders again. I don't know why we keep doing this, but I'm gonna have to question the manager here now. Maybe there's somebody injured, I don't know, but I don't understand for the life of me how we went in with Badiashile, Thiago Silva center back pairing and expected to have some sort of cohesion understanding on the pitch when neither of them have played together, for more than maybe the 3 games at the beginning of last season or in the mid parts of last season. So there's absolutely no cohesion, no understanding between the two of them. There's gaps of space being left in the back all over the place. Chelsea being exposed. And for me, that is on the manager. That has to be on the manager. How are you making decisions? If it's not for injury, you're making decisions to just chop and change your defenders, game after game after game, and expecting to see a performance like, a performance that is worthy of winning in the Premier League. You just can't have that. You cannot have that. Badiashile deserves minutes in this Chelsea setup, no doubt about it, but not when you haven't had, like, give him the cup games, give him, spot minutes here and there, but like, when you're starting a game against like a top team like Newcastle, regardless of the injuries, they have a methodology of how they want to play and they know how to execute it. They all understand what, you know, Eddie Howe wants from them. And you know, you can't just keep chopping and changing your back line and expecting great performances from them, you know. So that to me is about organization. That to me is about the manager. Then you look in the midfield, obviously Caicedo and Enzo have been mainstays there. Caicedo came back late from the international break. Chukwu came in. Didn't have a problem with him today. I thought that he, you know, made a few errors, but nothing that I didn't expect him to do as a 19-year-old coming in the Prem. He won a lot of duels. He was a guy that was very much tough on the tackle. We needed his presence in there, but you know, he's just young. He hasn't really figured it out yet. He doesn't really necessarily have that communication between him and Enzo yet. So, you know, there's a bit of a disjointed midfield going on there. And, you know, it showed in the game. And, you know, the entire game, what you were thinking was Chelsea, if they're going to win this game, it's going to be in the final third. You expect to see the performances of Raheem Sterling, Conor Gallagher, Jackson, and Palmer to just continue to grow, continue to show that understanding. And it just felt like, again, a fish out of water performance, like guys not connecting, guys not knowing where the runs are supposed to be, guys not knowing when to release the ball, guys not knowing where to pass it into space, guys not making accurate enough passes into space, you know, taking touches when they should be passing, shooting when they should be passing. Like, and again, this to me is not about the players on the pitch. This is down to organization, understanding what it is that the manager wants of you on the pitch. And we just did not see that in this game. This is another indication of that, where Chelsea still don't have a strong understanding of what they want to do, even when they get on the break, when they have numbers on the break, when you expect them to be, you know, at their most clinical, when they have numbers and they're running at, you know, a porous defense. And every time Chelsea had opportunities on the break, the decisions were poor. You know, 1 and 2 opportunities. I think there was one time where they, you know, just sliced through Newcastle and Reece James lays it off to Enzo. Great strike, should have scored, but you know, that was one move that I thought that Chelsea could have capitalized on in their build-up phase. But outside of that, it just seemed like we had no idea of what we were trying to do. And that to me comes down to management. We have to, we're what, 14, 15 games into the season right now, and we still don't have an understanding of what it is we're trying to do in the final third. And that to me is an indictment. I need to see more now. Like, I've given Pochettino, I've given the team a grace period of just trying to understand each other, trying to, you know, get some sort of semblance of what it is we're trying to do, and I'm not seeing enough of that return, you know, game to game. You know, we're seeing fits and starts here and there, but we're not seeing a consistent, strong performance from minute 1 to minute 90, and I need to start seeing that now. Now, I don't want to harp too heavily on our disorganization, our lack of understanding on the pitch, and all these other things that I've been touching on, because there were portions of the game, especially in the first half, where Chelsea were doing things well. One of those things that I thought was really, really good in the first half in particular was Chelsea's ability to play out from the back and Chelsea's ability to just slice through that, you know, that sort of like mid-block, you know, Newcastle press. I thought we did that very, very well at times in this game. And, you know, every time we were able to have success in this game, it was down to Chelsea being able to slice through Newcastle and get on the break, get numbers forward. It was just everything that came after that that seemed to fall down. The problem I had specifically in our understanding on the pitch, and again, maybe this is just down to not having Pochettino on the touchline, or maybe just not having players switched on, but that was working for large stretches of this game, Chelsea playing through Newcastle. And every time we tried to go long to Nicolas Jackson, tried to go long to Raheem Sterling, you know, trying to advance the ball, you know, more directly, playing out from the back, we turned it over every time. You know, Sanchez launching the ball, turning it over. Like, we don't have an aerial presence. We don't have anyone that can just bring the ball down and get us playing football further up the pitch. So I don't understand why we're going away from a successful, you know, playing out from the back, you know, our intuition, our understanding of where people need to be, trying to launch it down the pitch, trying to catch Newcastle off guard, when we don't have the ability to do that well. So that was one thing I couldn't understand. And then also, you know, there's portions in this game where Chelsea were building up on the flanks and whatnot, you know, playing out from the back. And what you needed to just release the pressure was one of your wingers or your striker to come deep and basically just provide a release for the outlet ball. And every time we went 15 to 20 yards into somebody like Raheem Sterling, into Jackson, into Cole Palmer, whoever it would have been, that would have given us the release to get on the break. You know, they were beaten by Newcastle defenders, in particular Raheem Sterling in that second half, where Chelsea were hemmed in on the left flank. And he's being beaten by Trippier to the ball every time. And you just can't have that at this level. I'm sorry, man. When you're trying to, you know, get a foothold in the match and you need your wingers to be switched on and understand that, like, the pressure, to relieve pressure, they need to beat their defender to the ball and just even lay it off to one of our midfielders. And you're second best to a ball that's being played to you. It's just not good enough. I'm frustrated by that because it's not recognizing where the strengths are in this game. Chelsea keeping it on the carpet and playing through Newcastle was working to large degrees in the first half, and we just went away from it and just couldn't find a foothold in the match when we started to go long, when we started to like try and be a little bit more direct with our passing. And you know, that to me was the difference in the game. But I think I'm gonna wrap it up there, guys. I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm very disappointed in this performance. I really did think that Chelsea had an opportunity to pick up some momentum, go into some fixtures where, you know, they seem like they could be winnable, this being one of them, obviously, with Newcastle with a whole plethora of injuries. But, you know, again, a wounded animal. How many times have we seen Chelsea, you know, go into a game where we feel like we have an advantage in terms of like the personnel on the pitch, and Chelsea put in a performance that is as putrid and poor as that? You know, it just happens far too often for a team that is trying to be one of the better teams in the Premier League, and I just can't have that anymore. You know, this is a game where you look at your leaders, you look at the guys that have been through the wars with you to pull you through, and, you know, be the shining lights, be the guys that are going to be the ones that, you know, dictate how we play football, how we're going to see through this match. And, you know, Reece James was poor. You know, obviously Thiago Silva, very, very poor. Enzo had a good first half, but, you know, again, sleeping at the wheel in the second half. You know, time and time again, the leaders that we have on the pitch just let us down. Raheem Sterling, another one. Not trying to, again, I don't want to be highlighting poor performances from individuals, Conor Gallagher, if I were to, but I don't want to be highlighting the individual performances. I just felt like collectively we just had absolutely no synergy on the pitch. And this is what I'm talking about when I talk about having a cohesion in the squad, having an understanding on the pitch. Like, it just felt like Newcastle knew exactly what the manager wanted and were executing it effectively throughout the entire match. Whereas you watch Chelsea, and with the exception of the first half, our build-up play, our playing out from the back and whatnot, everything else was just a complete eyesore. We just could not figure out what to do. And yeah, that at this point in time in the season is just unacceptable. You really need to be showing that you have an understanding on the pitch. You really need to be showing some sort of like chemistry and synergy, and we're just not doing that now. We're on to the next game. It's Brighton. I'll be here, you know that. You guys need to keep the blue flag flying high and up the Chelsea. Peace.